Hi everybody, Francesco here. I think I have one of the hardest jobs probably today because I come after lunch, so you guys are probably all in the power nap kind of mode, because I am personally. But I'll try to be as interactive as possible and not to bore you guys too much. But we're going to be talking about managing risk in your XRPL application today, specifically counterparty risk, right? When there's a wallet coming to your application and transacting, how do you make sure that that specific wallet is not a bad actor, is not a sanctioned individual, is not a hacker, is not a scammer? This is what we do at Unchained, and we're going to be showing you a little demo as well at the end of the talk. But quick introduction, Francesco here. As you can probably tell by the name and the funny accent, I'm originally Italian. I have an engineering background. I first kind of in aerospace engineering, where kind of like it's a little bit different than crypto, right? You start working on something, and then 10 years after, maybe it comes out, right? Maybe, if you're lucky. While in crypto, if you're not shipping stuff, in 2 weeks, you're late, you're slow. And it's like, all right, pace is very different, but a lot of fun. Been with Unchained for 2 years, which is also like around 50% of the life of the company. We're a 4-year-old startup based in San Francisco Bay Area, right? San Jose, to be precise. And I'm here with my colleague, Clayton.
Hi, guys. I'm Clayton, head of business operations at Unchained AI, based in Miami, Florida. Been in crypto for about 4 years. Been with Unchained coming up on 2 years. And I work very closely with a lot of the blockchain ecosystems that we work with, helping them manage risk within their applications. Specifically XRPL. So my voice is a bit shaky. You have to forgive me. Luckily, we have Francesco to take over most of the presentation, but happy to meet you guys.
Yeah. Clayton had a long flight from Miami. Air conditioning is messing with his voice. But Unchained, right? We like to call ourselves like guardians of Web3 digital assets, right? It's we develop like a set of tools, right? We have a full product suite. To really help in security and risk management when it comes to Web3 crypto in general, right? That spans from transaction security, code security, infrastructure security, right? Those are kind of like the 3 areas that we focus on. But today we're going to be going a little more deeper into transaction security. These are some of the customer that we serve at Unchained, from crypto businesses, exchanges, wallet providers, liquidity providers, NFT marketplaces, right? You name it. You touch crypto, you fall kind of like under crypto business, and you usually come talk to us. Traditional financial institution, of course, right? Their risk appetite usually is not the same as a couple of developers, right? They're just starting off, so they need these risk management tools, and law enforcement and regulators as well. When there's big hacks that happen, and regulators and law enforcement need to start investigate. They use our tools to conduct those investigations. And enterprises, right? We're really seeing a lot of institutional adoptions these days, and big enterprises jumping into the space. And again, they have a reputation to defend, right? They cannot afford to make the big headlines. So this is kind of like how our whole platform looks like. It's a series of tools from CISO, our blockchain investigation tool, Screen. It's a smart contract evaluation engine, to BEI, which is what we're going to be talking today about, right? BEI is our anti-money laundering API that allows you to do wallet screening and transaction monitoring, right? If you're starting your own application on the XRP ledger, you want to make sure, again, that you're not letting bad individuals transact with it, right? And of course, we have a whole suite of services that we can skip on. But really, and Clayton, perhaps you want to talk about this, right? This is some of the stuff that we work on, right, to support the XRP developer community. Today, we're focusing on a couple, BEI and Web3 Guard. Perhaps you want to chime in here and give a brief overview.
Yeah, absolutely. So for context, we're working directly with XRPL to provide open tools to the community of developers such that they can enable risk prevention within their projects, specifically financial projects. Mm-hmm. The way we're doing that is we're providing open access to our blockchain ecosystem intelligence API, which is the BEI API that Francesco showed you earlier, we'll dive into that. We're also providing the ability for a community to report, self-report scams, any hacks or suspicious activity that they're seeing within the ecosystem. And we can also work directly with the XRP Ledger Foundation to investigate any type of hack, God forbid, that may occur on the blockchain itself.
And let's go into the fun, right? Let's see the actual products. So this is BEI, right? What we just, Clayton was just mentioning. It's, REST API, very simple. We're going to dive into it right now. Very easy to integrate, 7 lines of code, right? And we're opening that up for free for every developer on the XRP Ledger, right? If you're usually like a small team of developers, a lot of the times you don't have, either you don't have the resources, right, financial resources to actually build with a risk-based approach from day one, or simply you're not required yet by regulation, because regulation moves slower than actual innovation, to have this risk-based approach integrated. But down the line, you will, right? So we want to make sure that developers build with a risk-based approach from day one. This is how the API works, right? There's like 3 endpoints. First one is like a label endpoint. So you pass whatever address, whatever XRP, whatever address on the XRP ledger, and it tells you, like, it gives you a label back, right? That label can be hacker, can be scammer, can be exchange, sanctioned individual, or simply like it's a normal ZAM wallet, right? So it's unaffiliated, right? With normal individual buying NFTs on a marketplace, right? Nothing to worry about. It can go deeper, right, into who's actually behind that entity, right? Maybe it's a ransomware, and it's a ransomware who attacked the Colonial pipeline, right? It can go deeper into the details based on the level of intelligence that we gather around that address, or that the community gather around that address. The second part, which is the coolest part in my opinion, is the risk score of that specific address. So we developed in the past 4 years, right, that we've been around. We kind of data scientists are at heart, right? We developed like a proprietary machine learning model to rescore any address on a blockchain, right? Based on their on-chain analytics, based on their interaction with specific addresses. Maybe there's a hacker that stole $100 million, and then they moved this money to 100 or 1,000 different addresses, right? And then they did this for like a year or 2 years. And it's very hard to pick up all these activities, like if you were to be doing this manually. So what our AI algorithm does is pick up all these activities and telling, hey, this wallet that you're interacting with has a risk score of like 70 out of 100, which is fairly high. They didn't do anything specifically wrong themselves, but hey, last year they received money from someone who was involved in a scam or in a hack, right? Maybe you do whatever you want with that information, but you need to know that these happen, right?
The machine learning creates a range with which you can work with, versus this is a sanctioned address or this is not a sanctioned address. You can also see that this address might be risky based on its behavior with a sanctioned address, for example. So that's the beauty of using machine learning in this type of a system.
Well, once you interact with something that's flagged like that, are you also flagged because you interacted with that wallet?
Right. Say that, for example, I'm a hacker, right? I stole $100 million, and then I send money to Clayton, right? Who's another hacker, right? That is kind of like in my team of hackers, right? Also, his risk score will be high, right? Because I send him money directly. But then Clayton sends money to Julia, and then Julia sends money to you, right? Your risk score is not going to be as high as mine, right? Because you're not directly involved, but you received somehow some of the money that was stolen, right? So there needs to be, it's like, we flag that activity, right?
It's a very subtle flag, right? So it's a range from 1 to 100. So maybe your risk score goes up by 1, but there's enough context around your transaction behavior to where that flag doesn't really indicate that you're someone who shouldn't be transacted with.
And then the latest endpoint is like more in a suspicious activity directly. So we tell you, hey, this address has a risk score of 50, right? Guarded, nothing to worry about. Or this is like a address that has a risk score of 80, And this is the reason why it has a risk score of 80, right? So there's some explanation that comes with that risk score. It's not just like a number out of the box, which is a very important, like usually machine learning models can like seem like a black box, or you input something, something comes out, where's the explanation of it, right? But we really want to have like that explanation coming with the risk score because it's important for compliance teams or like developers, right, to understand why someone is flagged as risky or not risky. The other tool that we developed, right, Web3 Guard, is this community tool where everyone can go in and report any sort of like suspicious activity that they found, right? Say that you're on a Discord channel, right, and someone reaches out and they try to sell you something, whatever. You send them money and they end up being a scammer. You probably want everybody else in the ecosystem to know that this wallet is a scammer, right? So we developed this tool that is open up. Everybody can see the submissions, and you can simply go there and report any sort of activity that looks suspicious and that you've seen or you've interacted with, or that someone else in your network interacted with. And that's open, and that is going to also power some of the risk scores, right, that we give with this API. The latest one, this is kind of like, we're not going to go much into the details of this one, but this is kind of like our investigative platform, right? If you actually need to go deeper, not just like do monitoring or screening, we have our investigative platform where you can go, can follow money through different hubs. You can do deeper investigation, and et cetera.
Yeah, right? This is how if someone were to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars from their wallet, we can use a tool like this to follow the funds, to monitor the wallets, and to connect with law enforcement so that potentially one day you could actually get your money back or catch the perpetrators. Mm-hmm. This is the type of tool we would use. And we support XRPL with this tool, so it makes it a lot easier to work with law enforcement in that capacity.
Awesome. And do you want to touch on the last slide, Clayton, and then we can jump into the actual demo?
Yeah, so why integrate BEI API? I'm kind of curious how many people in this room are developing projects or products on XRPL.
Over there, I see someone as well.
And are they financial-oriented products, particularly? A little bit.
NFTs.
NFT.
Yeah. Art.
Digital
right.
asset.
Yep.
So there's a non-government organization called the FATF. It's the Financial Action Task Force. And what the Financial Action Task Force does is it makes recommendations to the jurisdictions that it oversees, which is most of the world, as to how they need to operate their anti-money laundering and counter of financing of terrorism procedures. So what that means is the FATF dictates what will eventually become law. They're calling the shots in the background, and then the local law enforcement is eventually implementing that as law. So what they recommend is that all virtual asset service providers build with what's called a risk-based approach. Francesco touched on this. A risk-based approach from day one. And what that means is most virtual asset service providers are kind of obvious as to what the definition is, right? A bank that custodies financial or digital assets like Fidelity, obviously a virtual asset service provider. But the definition is starting to narrow down as time goes on. And what we're seeing is that DeFi protocols, specific DeFi projects down to the smart contract level are getting put under this umbrella of virtual asset service provider. And what that means is that your project might one day fall under this type of a regulation. So the reason we're opening up BEI API is so that people building smaller projects can have access to this risk-based approach from day one for free, so that when they hit scale in the future, regulators won't come after them, or they've already taken the necessary action to prevent that type of negative activity from a regulator. So why BEI API? Wallet screening and transaction monitoring facilitates growth and secures applications. So beyond protecting yourself from potential regulatory action, having that type of security built into your tool helps you gain users, right? We're getting to that point in crypto where sketchier applications aren't considered legitimate, and if you have institutional aspirations or you want to grow your project, you're going to want to gain users, and you're going to want to have something like BEI API integrated in order to make them feel better about using your application, to put it bluntly. And it secures the application as well. You can use the API to prevent and screen hackers, scammers, and sanctioned addresses from using your application. And maybe the most obvious reason is it's free. We're opening up to the community. If you're building an application on XRPL, talk to us, reach out to us. We can provide you with the documentation. We can integrate it for you. We can help you integrate it. And then you'll have that application for free. That's why it's a no-brainer, right? Eventually it becomes regulation. It secures your application now, and it's free.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of talks about like whether NFT marketplaces, for example, or NFT applications also fall under the umbrella of like virtual asset service providers. Still, regulators still trying to navigate that space and understand whether they do or whether they do not. In certain jurisdictions, they're starting to fall under that umbrella, in others not, right? So it really depends on the different jurisdiction, right? But again, you don't want to be caught like being classified as a virtual asset service provider and not having like all the risk tools in place, right? So that's proactivity is always like recommended, right, in the space.
We all saw what happened with Tornado Cash.
It's Tornado Cash, for those who are not familiar with it. It's like a mixer on Ethereum, right, that was recently added to the OFAC sanction list, right? And it's a tool that provides like privacy, right, to the space, but and it's a very cool tech, right, behind it, like zero knowledge proof technology, right? Very cool tech that is very privacy oriented, which criminals has also started like to use quite a bit, right? And a lot of criminals started like laundering money through this tech, and it was added recently to the OFAC sanction list, right?
That type of sanction is indicative of how regulators are moving beyond the traditional VASP and then down to the code level even, right? Because that's a smart contract. So
now let's actually jump into the demo, and I'm going to be showing you guys a couple of stuff. This is a demo site that you can access through demo.unchained.com, right? And it shows you how this works. Basically, you can see, with the command line, Python, Node.js, right? It's literally like 7 lines of code, right? You simply pass the protocol, right? You pass the address that you want to query, the API key that we provide. Right? We still haven't like opened up like a self-service onboarding. We want to get there at some point, right? Right now, we simply need to enable you and give you the API key for free. And what you get in response, actually, let me go in risky activity API, is a couple of stuff, right? It tells you that it's a valid address, right? This is a valid address that you passed. It tells you that the suspicious activity has been, takes into consideration, more than 2,000 like suspicious transactions, blah, blah, blah. And then it gives you like a couple of stuff on the risk level, right? You can see down here, it gives you like a risk level that is like a number between 1 and 4, right? 1 being low risk, 4 being high risk. And then it gives you an actual score that is more kind of like, actually, risk level, let me actually show you this. There's different categories, right, for risk level. Low risk corresponds to 1, 2 corresponding to guarded, right? It's kind of like there's not a lot of information to say this is like low risk or is high risk. Category number 3 is like elevated, right? A little more risky, right? There's some activity that looks suspicious, and then you get number 4, which is severe, that is like high risk, right? Usually like hackers, sanction individual directly, or scammers, whatever. And these correspond, like these categories, these risk scores basically make you fall under one category or another, right? So from 0 to 20, you're low. From 30 to 50, right, you're guarded, and so on. And this is this risk score that you see here. So in this case, this address, it belongs to an exchange, as you can see here. specifically to BCEX Global Exchange, right? And it's a low risk, it's an exchange, they have all the compliance stuff in place, right? And they don't have any suspicious activity that we picked up, right? So it's low risk.
This address in particular
Yep.
hasn't indicated suspicious activity.
Now, of course, these comes with documentation, right? It's more, it shows you like how to integrate it, but as you guys have seen here, it's super 7 lines of code, right? You integrate it in an hour, not even, right?
And you can set it up to continuously monitor. You
Yep.
can set it up to bulk monitor. If you want to query multiple addresses at once, you can do that. You can set up a job where it's scanning daily if you need.
Mm-hmm. There's a GitHub, of course, as well that you can check out. We give some examples of like how you can use it. It's under GitHub at Unchained BI Playground. And this is the kind of response that you get. This is like the monitoring dashboard, right? Say that you integrate into your application and you screen, I don't know, 100,000 wallets, right? This is like the kind of information that you see then. We give you like a breakdown of where the addresses that you queried fall in terms of like a risky activity, right? In this case, 4% fall under low risk, 25% guarded risk, and then we have quite a bit, right, in the high risk, and not a lot in the severe risk, right? In this case, we think we queried around a little less than 1 million addresses, right? But here you basically see a log, right, of all the addresses that you queried, with information on when you queried, the specific address that you queried, like the protocol, the risk score, and the entity name, right? And here you see some categories, right, specifically. In this case, we queried like 24 times hackers, like addresses that were labeled as hackers. Sanctions, right, 324, scammers, blackmail addresses, darknet markets, but also like a lot of exchanges, right, or mixers, the apps, right, DeFi, contracts, whatever, right, you name it, or whales as well. So this is kind of like when you integrate with BI, this is like the monitoring, like you don't need to build that yourself. It comes with the API, right? And to move on, actually, this is the same API that powers our CISO product as well, right? This is kind of how it looks in kind of like a compliance dashboard. Well, this is kind of like the tool that compliance teams and investigators use, right? Basically, this address, for example, is a hacker, belongs to the family of like the liquid exchange hackers. They transacted, this amount of money, several millions. They received this amount of money, first activity, last activity, AML risk score. This is kind of like more the investigative dashboard, right? You see a little bit more information on the suspicious activity as well. You can go and investigate it. You can do it manually. You can do it automatically as well. This is like our auto tracing tool. But I want to, before we're almost at the end of it, right? So I want to show you guys directly also like the community reporting tool that we developed, right? From here, you can go directly in the XRPL community, right? And from here, you can either like see reports that have been filed or file your own report, right? So in this case, I'm logged in with my profile. It's completely free, open to everybody. Everyone can see this. And there's already like a reported address, right? This address, I think they posted on some sort of XRP giveaway, right? And someone reported it, right? There's some reporting URLs. There's of course like evidence like of why this is being reported, and blah blah blah, right? This is kind of like we aim for transparency, right? We want the community to have tools, right, to report this sort of activity, and tools for builders, right, to actually like integrate the information, this kind of information in their own applications. So this is in a nutshell, right? To file a report is very simple. You go here, you enter an address, you enter the URL, prompts you to go next. Of course, I need to find one in this case, but in the interest of time, I won't go too much into details. But let me just find one actually, just real quick. I'm just going to be adding this, right, to Web3 Guard. You add it here, and then you take this URL. You add it here, and then click next. It asks you which category it belongs to, right? Rag pool, malware scam, SIEM swap, phishing. There's a lot of different categories of adders. From here, you select rag pool, and you move ahead, and you add description, evidences, and blah, 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 right? But this is in a nutshell. I know time is up. I don't know if we have time for questions. Our whole aim is like to give tools. Goal is to give tools for building with a risk-based approach from day one. And this is like one of our first steps to go in that direction and empowering every developer to do that, right, from day one. So thank you, guys. If you have any questions, come talk to us.